right, so here we are at this, what I forewarned you already about, but I finally finished up the write-up that I wanted to have, and I finished up the example for you to look at. So keep in mind, right, that this is the week we then move to sharing our work, right? And so here's what I want to see, and I'm going to actually let you start it this week and finish next week, but it's your project scope, right? So, and just FYI, like I said, we're going to finish this next week, and then you'll also start on your module development next week. So what you see in the bottom here is I've drafted what will at least be the major milestones for the next weeks coming for this part of our class. Okay? So then here's some basic requirements, and I'm going to refine these, but at least this should be enough to get you going, right? So your JS program should gather and validate user input, respond to the user in a meaningful way, right? Again, reflect on coffee run, right? So the idea that the user, in this case somebody sitting in the truck, is taking an order. That order is then displayed back to them, right? And then there's a function to deliver that order, right? So for me, my meaningful, input would be I log in, I create a login, I log in or I create that user, then I display user data to them, and then I have gameplay that then records their gameplay into the database. And in this case, I had said before, and I am going to use Firebase for that. Now, I'd said this before, but this is why this is such an important thing, is because reading this, helps you understand what other folks are doing. And some of you are gonna, and I've heard this from you, so this is going to be true. Some of you are going to take what we did for develop 1 and 2 and extend it. And that's what I'm doing, right? I'm extending its functionality. But some of you feel like you want to start over, and that's okay too, right? So just know that if you do that, it's going to feel like a little more work, right? But hopefully, right, you also feel like, okay, now I understand. Because I think what tripped up many people was the HTML and CSS, right? That's often why I think some of you will choose to use your one from before, because you already have that done. But don't let that be your determinant, right? Remember, this is not just a class. This is not, well, it is a class, but it's not just a class. This is also a way for you to add a really viable job market skill to your resume. And this can be your portfolio project if you want it to be. Okay, enough of the spiel. So must be written in the module object method pattern of coffee run. It must be responsive and mobile ready. It's nothing new. That's what it was before as far as your design. Must be functional and well documented. Okay. So here's mine. I've drafted it, and I want you to follow this pattern, right? So it's a Google Doc, right? You would then share that Google Doc by only doing a shareable link. Do not give anyone edit. You don't want that. Not that anyone would. You just don't want them to have edit on your document, right? So here's what I want you to do. I want again a user story. So I modified my user story, right, to actually determine, right, or to indicate the additional features that I was going to use. And actually, I need to add a little more to this. So this is just, again, my draft. And then I went into and name it. It's really, I want you to name this. That's one thing I think I saw a couple times with students, is they didn't really name their project. And you want to name it. Give it a name. And then I want a functional overview, right? So for me, I went over, right, the authentication. Mine's going to be a single page app. So what that means is I'm going to use a login div that will take the whole screen, and when the user is logged in, then I will do a show hide to take that off of the UI, and then the gameplay will be underneath it. Okay, and you'll see me. I obviously, this is what I do. I share, I share my output with you. So then once that user logs in, the username and their gameplay from the past will display. And then I will incorporate messages this time. And this is what I want. This is the reason I'm going over this like this is like taking, if those of you that are taking the 1 and 2, your output really of 2, develop it 2, right? I need to know more of what you're doing here. So I want to see it like this. Like I want to see what the interaction that you're going to have, right? So by clicking on the first card, this is nothing new for me. The encouragement, right? Until they find a match, and they give an even more encouragement. We'll continue until the game's done, and it will be scored, right? So this time I'm actually going to I'm going to integrate a score into mine, right? I'll figure out how to do that. And then the data, user data will be stored in the real-time Firebase real-time database by date and time and game score. And then once it's complete, the user info will be updated and they'll be given an opportunity to play another game. So this is actually pretty significant change from my first one, right? So application architecture, here's what I want you to do. And this is, of course, nothing new, right? So, and this just goes over how my first one was written in functions. My next one will be written in ES5 modules to allow scale and demand and player request new features. And then I've drafted at least the modules I believe I'm going to use. Now this obviously can change, right? This is just my draft. And then by next week, you want to have a little more detail, okay, about what each of these modules is going to be, what it's going to do. And so the other thing, and I've drafted at least one here you're going to want to do, which is, and this is actually something out of the book, so if you want to go look at it, but this is the idea of the truck, right? So my equivalent of the game, and then the data store, so my equivalent is the player data. And then here's the methods that will interact with these methods that are in the player data, right? So mine, I didn't have a need to remove, right? I didn't have a need to remove my user for some reason. I guess I could implement a delete, like stop playing the game or delete my data. That's something I could think about in the future. Okay, so this is the draft, right? So I want to see as much of this. I would expect for you to get full points. You have about 80% of this done, and like I said, I have to, and I already had some description here, but I decided to take it out for now, and I'm going to work on with that because as I move closer to it, I'll probably draft what these modules will look like. As a matter of fact, that's what you can see in next week. Okay, so hopefully this helps you understand. And again, write a little something here, right? So share your link, right? So I gave my link here. You can give it however you want, but give the link to your doc. Talk about, write a good paragraph about your thoughts about this work. And this is where, again, I'm responding to what I hear, and I think will be a good change for us for the next couple of weeks. And next week, we have our last week of having this as the third item, right? So that's why I'm just asking for you to start the module development and finish the scope for this time. All right, I hope that helps you out, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.